His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON Svandracharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki, Shri Shri Nitai Mayapur Chandra Ki, Sankirtan Yajna Ki, Go Premanande. All glories to their Samudevatis. All glories to their Samudevatis. All glories to their Samudevatis. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So Hare Krishna devotees, one and all, and we have been asked, Krishna, we have been ordered really to say a few words on a particular subject today, an important subject. Yeah, really, I mean, about the most important subject. Thank you kindly. And that is the subject of devotional service, which is the essence of Krishna consciousness. And it's the essence of what is taught in Bhagavad Gita, devotional service. According to the Vedic literatures, there are many types of activities one can do or try to do in order to progress spiritually to one degree or another. But the most effective by far, and the only one which is ultimately completely effective, is devotional service. And so, yes, let us say a few words along these lines, and after a little while, if anyone has any questions, comments, any points they'd like to bring up, you can. And we might possibly at least, we have a questions sheet sometimes? Sometimes. Is today one of those times? Thank you very much. Let us pass around the question sheet, because then you can feel free to write something down. You don't need to worry that people may feel it's not a good question or something like that. They say, the only silly question. I think sometimes devotees, people are afraid of asking something which may be seen to be or thought to be a silly question, and then people may sort of giggle or in one way or another just express dissatisfaction with the question, which could be embarrassing. Yes, so if we pass around the question sheet, people can write down what they like, and then in a while we can have a look and try and answer a few of the questions or address any of the matters which are raised. Yes, okay. So to start off with, just to get the ball rolling, so to speak, I'm going to read a couple of verses, I think, is it 3? Looks like 3 verses from Bhagavad Gita, which are appreciating devotional service in the context that devotional service is how we can come to see Krishna, and not just see, just like sort of look and see, oh, there he is, but really get to know Krishna and develop a relationship with Krishna, which includes seeing Krishna. So these 3 verses, they're from the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. which is titled The Universal Form. Those of you who may be familiar with Bhagavad Gita would know that in this 11th chapter, Krishna shows Arjuna what we call the universal form, Vishvarupa, which basically means the same thing in English. And in other words, how Krishna is pervading everything, pervading this world. So many things which we see when we just look around the world around us, they have particular places in the sense of being displays of some particular feature of Krishna, some energy of his, some potency, some special quality or characteristic of Krishna. The thing is, or the thing was, that when Arjuna saw that, he found it very shocking. In fact, he found it too shocking. It was intolerable for him because, along with some things which are attractive and nice and beautiful like that, but within this world there are a lot of things which are not nice. Actually, there's a lot of things which are horrible and even just so extremely horrible, they're just too much, kind of indigestible by our minds and our emotions. So Arjuna saw that side of Krishna. It's one side. Krishna is multifaceted. All sorts of different qualities and characteristics and so on. And one side is quite shocking. It was particularly the side, well, it's called technically the Kala Rupa. Kala means time, and Rupa means form. The form of time within this material world. And you know, Krishna, at some point in the course of all this, well, towards the end actually of this, Arjuna says to Krishna, "Who are you? What are you?" Because they had known each other for many years. They were cousins. And, you know, when you have cousins, oftentimes they're really close to you. And, you know, very friendly, affectionate relationship. He had that sort of relationship with Krishna. And he took Krishna to be like that. That was basically what Krishna was all about. But then he saw this universal form, and particularly the form or the aspect, well, the form of time, and what time does to people and living beings and even the whole world. And it was very shocking. So therefore, Arjuna asked Krishna that, you know, I thought I knew you, but now I see these aspects of you, and I understand I didn't really know you very much at all. Who are you? What are you? And Lord Krishna replied, Kalos me lokakshaya krit pravrita. Kalo, I already mentioned Kala means time. Kalo, asmi is the Sanskrit form. Asmi means I am. Asmi, yeah, I am. Asmi, asi, asti, he is. Asi, you are. But asmi, I am. Kalos me. Lokakshaya krit pravrita. I am time. And, I mean, not that he says it, but what do I do? What is my function as time? Loka means all the worlds and just everything. Lokakshaya Krit Pravrinta, I come to destroy everything. And then Arjuna sees some of this destruction. Wow. And it's really extreme. So, and when you're young, looking around, so many young people here, younger than 60. You're younger than 60. Oh, young! A youngster. Wait till you get to be more than 70. Well, there's a saying amongst elderly people, old age is not for sissies. And I can confirm, wow, it's just really not for sissies. Gee whiz. Yeah, okay, anyway. So these verses then, because what happened was, Arjuna saw that form or those aspects of the Vishvarupa. Vishva meaning universe or universal, and Rupa meaning form. And then he asked the question, Krishna answered as we said, and then he said to Krishna, can you please stop showing me this form? It's too much. In fact, Srila Prabhupada commented that, not directly here in Bhagavad Gita, but elsewhere, Prabhupada commented that Arjuna was a warrior, a professional warrior, not just professional, but that was what he was. He was a warrior and he lived like that. And therefore he had fought in many battles and, destroyed and killed many people. Yes. And in very dramatic ways. We don't really know how many, but probably was thousands. Cutting off their heads and cutting people in half from the head down through between the legs. So I shouldn't talk about it, should I? I don't want to put you off your lunch. Nice lunch. But really just very extreme. Right. So yeah, when you're young, it seems like life is kind of open-ended. It's just going to go on and get better and better. Yes. But little do the young people really know, like clearly know, that things start to deteriorate. Things start to deteriorate after, what would you say? 20, I heard like after 28, all the rugby players and what was his name? Mr. Bolt, Usain Bolt, fastest man in history apparently, but he retired when? I don't know exactly, but maybe around 30, because things start deteriorating. And it's just a downhill slope, gradual and then less gradual and then out the door. See you next lifetime. So Arjuna asked, can you stop showing me this form? It's too much. And he actually asked Krishna, can you show me your forearm form? Which Krishna did. And then he said, actually I'd appreciate it. Can you show me your two-arm form? Which is like Krishna's natural form, who Krishna really is. And Krishna showed him that. But Srila Prabhupada made the comment that Arjuna had seen so much, just extreme violence, and destruction of people. Yeah. you could say he was kind of used to it. So Prabhupada makes the point that therefore, when Arjuna saw that universal form, he did not have a heart attack. It had just been one of us, just some kind of more ordinary type of person, and we had seen that, it would have actually been too much and we would have lost it and had heart attacks, possibly lost our lives just through the shock of it all. So, but then Krishna showed the two-armed form and he made some very important comments about that form and about seeing that form and about serving him in that form, two-armed form, which we will read about now, a few verses. First of all, though, please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So I'm going to start with chapter 11 of Bhagavad Gita, Universal Form. I'll start with verse 51, which is Arjuna expressing himself and his relief and pleasure, satisfaction in seeing the two-armed form. I'll read the Sanskrit first. The other verses, I may just read the translations. Arjuna uvacha drishvedam manusham rupam, your human-like. Not exactly human form, but your human-like form. Tava somyam janardana, idanim asmi samvrita Sachita Prakritim Gata. Translation. When Arjuna thus saw Krishna in his original form, means that two-armed form. So when Arjuna saw like that, he said, "O Janardana, seeing this human-like form, so very beautiful, I'm now composed in mind and I'm restored to my original nature." Interesting little point. It's not a big thing, but it's an interesting thing is he addresses Krishna as Janardana. You know, if you've read Bhagavad Gita a bit, you may have noticed that when Krishna starts speaking, because it's a conversation, so Arjuna speaks, and then Krishna starts speaking again, and then Arjuna speaks, and then Krishna starts speaking again. But you may have noticed that Bhagavad Gita never says when Krishna starts speaking again. The Bhagavad Gita never, not one time, says Sri Krishna Uvacha. It only says Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Because Bhagavan, even though it's a name of Krishna, but it's more like a title. It's more like a title than just, a regular name. Krishna has many, many names. But he's only addressed as Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, or as Sri Bhagavan. Uvacha means speaks. Because it's like that. It's what we call an honorific, a term which is expressing honor, like His Grace, or Your Royal Highness, or what do they call Cyril?
What else?
Don't say that.
His Excellency.
What do they call the President?
His Excellency.
His Excellency. Okay. These are... What's wrong with you? I'll report you. Anyway, the thing is, these are honorifics. When our Cyril goes home in the evening, and I assume he's got a wife, and she doesn't say, Your Excellency, Your Excellency, you haven't taken out the rubbish. Yeah, the people are coming tomorrow, can you take it out now? So Sri Bhagavan means, Bhaga means opulences, and Van means one who possesses. He's the one who possesses all opulences. Whereas Krishna is more like a name, like Cyril, for his excellency. Yes. So, yeah. Anyway, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Think about it. It's a very interesting point. Right, so this term Janardhan, it has two meanings. One is more or less like maintainer of the jana. The jana means the citizens. But the more common meaning is the one who kills all the living entities, jana, the living entities. So you notice if you read carefully, you'll see when Arjuna addresses Krishna, which he does on numerous occasions through Bhagavad Gita, he addresses Krishna using different names depending on the particular kind of specific point he's addressing. Yeah, and the particular nature of Krishna, which may be related to the particular point he's trying to bring out about Krishna. So here Arjuna says, O Janardhan, that, O destroyer of the people. Yes. So seeing this human-like form, which is very beautiful, I'm now composed in mind, and I'm feeling normal, stable. So then Krishna responds in verse 52, or begins responding, and guess what term Bhagavad Gita uses, devotees and friends? Guess what term? When it's said, now, okay, here is Krishna now speaking. Take a guess. Go on, come on, I already told you. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. That's what it says. Or that's what Vyasadeva says, because Vyasadeva compiled the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Sudurdashamidam Rupam Drishtava Nasiyan Mama Deva Apyasya Rupasya Nuyam Darshana Kanchina. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, My dear Arjuna, this form of mine which you are now seeing, two-armed form, is very difficult to behold. Even the demigods are ever seeking the opportunity to see this form, which is so dear. And verse 53, I'm going to read verse 53 and verse 54, which is the last verse in the chapter. I'll just read the translation here. So again, it's Lord Krishna speaking. The form you're seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can one can see me as I am. And verse 54, my dear Arjuna, Only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. Could you please, if your phone is still on, could you switch it off? Or, whatever, something to that effect. I had one experience in Durban in our temple there in Chatsworth where I told everyone, I sort of wagged my finger at everyone and told them, turn off your phones. And next phone that rings, I will confiscate. Seriously. And you know what happened? 5 minutes later, my phone rang. In the middle of, 500 people. And they really laughed. Anyway, such is life, I got a phone. Thank you. It's better than what have I got? I just got a few days ago an iPhone 15. Is it better than that? I'll confiscate it and sell it to defray expenses. So anyway, this is the thing. This is the thing, to see Krishna. And it's interesting, Prabhupada, the way he's translated this last verse we just read just now, that only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. It indicates that first must come understanding and then seeing. Yeah, it's more like that. I mean, it does happen when Krishna's present on the planet that some people see him, and usually they're quite struck, because he looks very extraordinary, looks very beautiful, extremely beautiful, actually, among other things, but particularly beautiful, so beautiful that even sometimes people, when they see him, they faint, because the beauty is just so overpowering. I don't think we've ever had an experience like that. Or did any of you have the experience that someone saw you and fainted? Show me, did it happen to you? Did it happen? Just once? Not yet. Still working on it. Okay. Yes. So there are cases where people have seen Krishna and not understood him, but then they did come to understand him, and it developed into a real transcendental relationship. But they're in the extreme minority. They're really in the extreme minority. The general point is that, first of all, people have to understand, and then they can see, and then the seeing will be substantial, be meaningful, and there'll be a much greater depth to the seeing. So that's just an interesting little side point. Only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. And Lord Krishna makes the same point or similar points, you could say essentially the same point in different places in different ways. Let me just refer to chapter 4. That was chapter 11 we were looking at. Now here's chapter 4, verse 3. Lord Krishna says, Sa evaya maya tedya yoga prokta paratana bhaktosi me Saka Cheti, Rahasyam Hyetad Uttamam. That very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of the science. So anyway, really the bottom line here is that we have to understand Krishna, and you understand him by devotional service. He generally, other than, these sort of rare cases, but even these rare cases, it kind of ends up boiling down to understanding, actually. Yes, you need to understand him. And you need to perform devotional service. Then you'll understand him. Or, not just sort of understand, but you'll start to get, glimpses into the nature of the Lord and who he is and what he is and what part he is playing in your life. That's when it really becomes interesting, because Krishna, we are, and people generally are in a state, we call it sometimes Krishna unconsciousness. We're trying to practice Krishna consciousness, becoming conscious of him, because he's here. Well, he's on the altar to start off with, and in different pictures, but he's everywhere. He's out in the garden too, and he's out on the road, and he's down at the beachfront, and he's down in the shopping malls even. He's actually everywhere, but unless you perform devotional service, you will not be tuned in enough to recognize his presence there. You'll think that, yeah, I'm just in the shopping mall. Oh, there you go. And that's all there is to it. But it's not all there is to it. Yeah. So this is really important. That we have to render devotional service. Then Krishna, as it were, gives us the eyes to see him for what he is, gives us the consciousness, the understanding, to start to understand him. And then gradually it'll develop into seeing him. And ultimately, even like if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, now that's another step further from reading Bhagavad Gita, but there Lord Krishna, Lord Brahma, the creator, meets Krishna. Lord Brahma, after doing much service, and much glorification of Krishna, which is also a form of service, very much. He became qualified to see Krishna, and you know what happened? Krishna walked up to him and shook his hand. How's that? Handshaking is not just some funny European practice which has developed through the years. It's transcendental. The Supreme Lord shakes people's hands when he's pleased with them. So therefore we have to render devotional service. If you don't render devotional service, you're not going to get much understanding, if any, but certainly not much. At best it'll be kind of superficial and it won't really go deep. So we've got to render devotional service, and in Bhagavad Gita also Krishna makes the point that you can sort of almost do anything as a service, anywhere. Arjuna was a warrior, so he was a warrior for Krishna. By birth, by upbringing, by training, but just by physical and psychological and emotional nature, he was a warrior. So you may be a housewife. We have housewives here. I can see it. I'm sure there's a number of you around. Yes, there's one. Right. A housewife. And instead of doing what Arjuna did, killing people, etc., but you can keep your family in line. Sort them out. Years ago, it was quite some time ago, I read something which said, in your house, if it lies around on the couch all day and doesn't really do much, unless it's time to eat, then either it's your dog or you married it. I'm sorry. Let me get back at the mess. It's just a joke. Don't panic. So yeah, if you're a housewife, you got to train the children. My Lord. You really got to train the children for their own good and sort of your own sanity, and got to keep the place clean, and hopefully you can cook nicely, because the way to a man's heart and his wallet is through his stomach. Whoever said that really knew what they were talking about, because it's true. And you can make your house Krishna conscious. At least you can have nice pictures around. I mean, after all, this used to just be a house. This is not a purpose-built temple at all. It was actually a hotel. Yeah, going back, we took it over, I think it was 86. So, in your home, make your home Krishna conscious. And instead of everyone sitting around watching television, have a Krishna conscious program in the evening. Yeah, nice. Do it nicely so it's attractive and interesting and not kind of, oh, we're going to read Bhagavad Gita again. Oh. But then, and you can have deities at home too, I imagine some of you do. But interesting point, you have deities at home, and, in the great majority of cases, not all, but great majority, the standard of looking after the deities at home is almost inevitably, due to force of circumstances, a lower standard than the standard of the worshipping of the deities in the temple. Yes. I mean, here it's relatively simple in the temple also. I mean, not that simple, but it's kind of on the simple side compared to, say, like in Durban, Radharatna particularly, or in Joburg, Nitai Gaurahari. The deities are dressed twice a day and offered food 6 times a day and offered arti 6 times a day. Young man. He's a good boy, actually. He wants to go on the altar to be closer to Krishna. That's nice. Yeah, so there, that is really a higher standard. Here it's kind of somewhat simpler, but generally speaking, it'll be quite a bit more sophisticated, or like on a higher level spiritually than your standard at home, because you got to work and you only got so much time. So therefore, it's beneficial. I'm just mentioning deity worship as an example, but it's very beneficial to do service in a temple, which means the whole place is being very specifically organized and managed, very specifically, like in very pointed ways, specifically for spiritual development, and not just, like home and living at home where, just eating and sleeping. A lot of these things are pretty prominent. So therefore, we would recommend do some service in the temple. And someone might say that, well, life is busy at home, and it's busy, we know it's busy. But you get special benefit from doing service in the temple, like serving the deities in the temple, as opposed to serving the deities at home, although serving the deities at home is great, it's wonderful, it's really wonderful. But what happens when you go away on holiday? What happens to your deities at home? Well, if you can, take them with you. If you can't, what you're going to do? Put them to sleep for a week or two? How does that sound? The deities are people. They're not things. They're not objects. They're people. And they're actually the supreme people. They're way above us. And, when you go on holiday, if you're family people, you've got your children, you take them with you. So you should take the deities with you. Although some, because, for whatever reason, they don't, and, we know it's a fact. So they just put them to sleep, which in a technical sense, the technicalities of worshipping the deities, which is, it's quite a subject. It is permissible. It's not like it's really wrong or bad. But still, it's not very nice. Can you imagine, your children, your little children, if you told them, yes, you, me, and, us, the parents, we're going on holiday, but, we can't take you, so we'll be back in 2 weeks. If you're like preschool age, for example, don't worry, we'll be back in 2 weeks. It's okay. Just go to sleep. It's not good, is it? It's impersonal. It may be, it can be done. It's not like it's just outright wrong. But it's not very good. And these, living at home and having to deal with the realities of bringing up a family and paying the bills and all that. Sometimes things like this happen. It's just the way it goes. One thing I do, not every time, but sometimes, I used to do regularly when I was visiting our devotees, householders, families, when they weren't looking, I would sneak down to the fridge and check out. Oh my God. And almost every time it was usually some sort of achar, which was not very achar, if you know what I mean. But usually some sort of pickle, which, if you read the small print carefully enough, if you had, your stronger pair of glasses on, you'd see it. It mentions something about onions, garlic, particularly garlic, I think, before onions. And garlic is not kosher. I could tell you the story, but we don't have time. But garlic is what? Onions are the heel of the cow. Onions are the heel of the cow. Yeah. So when people eat onions, Prabhupada told a story. I've got the story somewhere. Quite a long story about this fellow. He was a Brahmin, but he really wanted to eat a cow and see what it's like. So he got the opportunity and he buried it, like the legs. And he came back later when no one was looking, and the heel had turned into an onion and something else. Anyway, if you're an onion person, garlic person, sorry, don't want to offend you. But my point is that we should try to progress in devotional service, because devotional service is the foundation in terms of what you've got to do if you want to become Krishna conscious. The first thing you have to do is do some devotional service. Yeah. So, doing it at home, fantastic, better than, at night watching television. To have some Krishna conscious program, but we should try. I mean, after all, you all make the time to work. So why can't you make some time, and I know many of you do, to come to the temple? Yeah. I remember asking a few people some years ago in England, you come to the temple? They said, yes, I come on Sunday. I say, what do you do? I eat the feast. That's your service. I listen to part of the lecture sometimes. So think about it, see what you can do, because it's just for your benefit, that's all. Because doing devotional service, it's so uplifting and just enlivening in the extreme. I'm going to answer the questions in a moment. Before I do, just let me tell you one little story from my own experience. The very first day I visited a Hare Krishna temple, the very first time, was in Auckland, New Zealand. I was born in Auckland, New Zealand. It was in London, sorry. I ended up in London later on. So I went to the temple in central London, and I went there in the morning sometime, and I was there till the evening, speaking to people, reading some things and so on. I found it all very interesting. And at some point in the afternoon, one of the devotees came up to me and said, do you have a little time? I said, yeah, I guess so. Said, would you mind doing something to help? Well, I guess I could. I was an easygoing young man. He said, well, do you mind cleaning the toilets? And I thought, gee, I'm a visitor, first of all. And it's the first day I'm visiting. I don't think it's, strategically very good in dealing with people and encouraging people to take an interest and get involved, to first day have them clean the toilets. But I did. And you know what I noticed? After 2 minutes, I noticed I was feeling really alive and just, full of energy and enthusiasm and inspiration. And so I cleaned all the men's toilets in the men's area right upstairs. And I was 21, and as far as I was concerned, you might find this a little amusing or even strange. As far as I was concerned, I had retired. And I'd made my mind up I was not going to work again. At least in my mind, I was thinking like that. But then, when I cleaned the toilets, I thought, yeah, I don't want to work again, but working for Krishna, it seems to be really nice. It's really much better than the other work that I had done. I'd been working for a few years. So it's like that. Devotional service is just wonderful. But the thing is, you've got to get into it and sort of give yourself to it and not, if you're asked, would you believe, at the end of the program in an hour or two or hour and a half or something, if they ask you, would you mind helping clean the pots, then don't think, oh no, they caught me. I was trying to sneak out the back way, but they caught me. No, you're lucky. You're really lucky to do some service, and particularly in service in the temple, where everything is intensified. It's really intensified. Sometimes devotees who've been practicing at home, even for some years, they decide, okay, I'm going to come and live in the temple and just full-time, just do it. So we tell them, at least I tell them, great idea, I love the idea, but just go and try it out for a while and just see how it goes before you really commit yourself absolutely, because it's more intense living in the temple, in this whole Krishna conscious environment where everything is simply to do with devotional service. Yeah. But if you can sort of tune in and acclimatize and so on, it is truly nectar. So there you go. I will now try to answer some questions here. Can practicing any one of the 9 processes of devotional service bring perfection? Or is it recommended to practice all together to attain perfection? The 9 practices are, I'm sure some of you know the 9 processes. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atmanam Vedam. Got it. Got it. They've all got it. Hearing, chanting, remembering, anyway, there's 9 processes. So, is it recommended, or is it that doing any one can bring perfection? Well, you have not been reading your Prabhupada's books enough, because if you had, you would see Prabhupada, like Nectar of Devotion particularly, he says, just doing any one of them can bring perfection. That's the answer to your question. Or 2, or 3, or 4, or all of them. The more the merrier, as they say. But it's even true, the more the merrier. You'll really be very happy. So do as much as you can. But if you specialize in one and really get into it, it can be enough to bring perfection. How do we become more tolerant to the more gruesome features of Krishna? Well, you can pray that nobody invades South Africa like the Russians have invaded Ukraine, because, quite a few people there have seen people blown to pieces, etc., etc. Yeah. Right. So we certainly hope that Mozambique does not invade South Africa. Nobody laughed. What happened? Or how about this? Zimbabwe invades South Africa. Yeah, so the thing is, the thing really is ultimately, if we really focus on our chanting, particularly our chanting, once we're getting into the way of life, if we focus nicely on our chanting, then we will become more tolerant of everything, even to our own death. It's coming. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. So, and for most people, their own death is really quite disturbing, very disturbing. But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the very advanced devotees on the level of Krishna Prema, when their death comes, when it happens, it actually happens, in many cases they don't even notice. What to speak of holding on and tolerating it and not getting sort of freaked out by it. But they may not even notice it because they are so transcendental, so above and beyond the influence of the material nature. But, in their cases, after some time, they realize, oh, hey, where did my material body go? Oh, I must have died. Oh, well, okay. Better like this, in a spiritual body. So really it requires Krishna consciousness development, like serious development of Krishna consciousness. Please explain, can regular financial contributions be considered as part of devotional service? Yes, definitely. Anything which we offer to Krishna, and service means we're offering our intelligence or our physical strength to do something. It's all service. Prabhupada once in Mumbai, one wealthy man came to see him to give a donation of something like what in those days was a lot, or quite a bit, what they call 1 lakh of rupees means 100,000. I remember when I first went to India, 1 rupee, what was it? 8 rupees equaled $1. Now I think it's about 87 or something along those lines, approaching 90. Anyway, but this man, he wanted to donate 1 lakh, 100,000 rupees cash. So he did, he gave it to Prabhupada, and then he stood there sort of waiting for Prabhupada to say, oh, thank you so much. How kind of Prabhupada had done that basically, but if we really get down to like detail sort of mood, because God said so, still be applicable or allowed today. But how do we know it is truly in service to God? Yeah, well, particularly nowadays, that's a very valid point. Arjuna, we already said quite a bit, was a warrior, but he was a warrior devotee. He was a real devotee, my gosh. Fully dedicated, heart and soul, to Krishna. And like I said, a personal associate. They'd meet practically every day and spend time together. They were really close. And Krishna is God. So if Krishna tells Arjuna, I want you to fight, then Arjuna doesn't need to worry, well, Is it valid or not? Does he have the right to tell me to fight, or does he not have the right? I mean, is he really God or not? What we have nowadays are quite a number of man-made religions. And the presence of God within them is sort of, or the degree of presence is kind of debatable. Yeah. And in some cases, anyway, at least it may be quite debatable. And whether someone in the tradition says you should fight and kill, whether they actually have the right, that's another thing. But, Krishna ordered Arjuna, so Arjuna was right to do it. Having said that, there are certain Vedic standards, particularly for householders, of situations in which not only can they fight, but they must fight. They have to fight. Like, for example, if someone violently attacks the family members, then the husband, father, must fight. He cannot stand back and say, well, I think it's your karma. It's your time to die, so see you later. No, the husband or the father has to fight. Has to fight. And if he doesn't, if he won't, that's sinful, that refusal is very serious sinful activity. And other situations, if someone tries to poison you, then that you should act strongly against the person. And there's a whole list actually in Bhagavad Gita. Read your Bhagavad Gita. How's that? That's a good idea. And you'll find the list, where the person, particularly the man, but it can also apply to the mother, must fight and kill. If someone is really so crazy and so carried away that they're going to do something totally extreme against your family members, like your children, and you're the mother, you got to do something about it. Okay, we're almost there. I'm told that we're on earth because we have been envious of Krishna and have fallen down from the spiritual world. But in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says that one who has attained this planet never returns. So how did we fall from there? If it's envy, then how does the quality of envy exist there as well? Well, there is, if you read Nectar of Devotion, there is transcendental envy. There's transcendental envy. There's transcendental anger. There's even transcendental hatred. These, what are normally seen as being very negative emotions, they're there spiritually. Yeah, there's spiritual versions of them. Yes. So, and Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one who has returned to me never returns to the material world. But that's if you returned. But a first time, well, you never know, you might get bewildered. There's transcendental bewilderment too. So these things can get undermined. Even in the spiritual world, we're not like spiritual machines, robots. Press the button and, we just do everything great. We have our minute independence and we may make a mistake. Yes, there are spiritual mistakes. Prabhupada and other acharyas explained that Jai and Vijay, who fell down and became Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, they had the desire. Well, they knew that the Lord, their Lord, wants to fight. He wants to have a really good fight. But when he fights against the regular demons, all he's got to do is like flick, and that's it. They're completely finished. So there's no question of having a good fight with them. So they thought that in order to please him, we should go to the material world and become materialistic. So we actually give him a really good fight. Yeah. Yes. And our acharyas, I mentioned in Prabhupada, they say, this was a mistaken, it was a Krishna conscious desire, but it was a mistaken desire. They shouldn't have thought like that. It was a mistake. But there they were in the spiritual world, thinking like that. And they did that. Yes. So, okay. If the Pandavas, who were all so close and dear to Sri Krishna, all went to hell first before entering the spiritual world, what chance do we have of going back home, back to Godhead at the end of this or future lifetimes? I mean, this is one of our old devotees who's asking these last couple of questions. Yes, you know, sometimes in the lives of the very great devotees, they are put through extreme situations to set examples to the lesser beings like you and me. That this is when you get into, if you get into an extreme situation, this is how you should deal with it. For example, the Pandavas, actually, they were banished for what was it, 13 years or something. And they went through a lot of difficulty. But they're amongst the greatest of all devotees. So it's not their karma, it's the Lord making that arrangement, because then in dealing with these great difficulties and even tragedies they had to face, they dealt with them in the best ways that we can learn from. Even like Sita was kidnapped, and Lord Ram, he vowed to rescue her. And Prabhupada makes the point, he could have just created 100 Sitas, replacement Sitas, exactly the same. But he didn't. To set an example, and this is one for you men. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you a householder? You are. Listen to this then. That he understood that I have to rescue my wife. And that's all there is to it. Or die trying. Yeah. Got it. It's part of the contract, did you see? When you sign the marriage contract on the next page. Or die trying. Yeah. But he set an example. And it's not even a devotee, he's the Supreme Lord. Set an example for householders. How they have to look after household men. How they have to look after their wives. And even if your wife is a bit of a character. I hear there's a few of them. You still got to look after her. And you can't just say, well, she's too much of a character. So I'll just let her go. Is that okay? Okay. So let's carry on with some kirtan. Yes. Arati. Guru Puja. Srila